All right, tonight we've got Dan Davidson here. He's been recommended by one of our listeners who always recommends the best guests.
Clint.
Our buddy Clint. And it's interesting because Dan's research seems to really cross over with some of our past guests recently. He's been researching etheric science, like resonance, atomic structure, that type of stuff. And he has a paper. I don't know if you'd call it a book or a paper. We'll talk to him about it, but it's called Shape Power. And it's a treatise on how form converts universal ether into electromagnetic and gravitic forces and related discoveries in gravitational physics. So this is kind of one of those, pushing against our current scientific paradigms. And we're really glad to have Dan on the show. Thanks for coming on, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have you. We can start with that if you want. I mean, your paper and your presentations that we've seen online about shape power. Is that a good place for us to start?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about shape power. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Basically, the shape power book was a result of about 40 years of research, and it all came together in like about 3 or 4 days when I started working with a clairvoyant.
Wow.
One of the things that I had been interested in is that John Keely, who was the scientist back in the late 1800s.
Yep.
He would write shapes or figures on the blackboard, and his equipment would run.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they
right,
could never find any. Yeah, this was kind of magic. And this friend of mine who was a clairvoyant said, well, let's see what happens when we do a few shapes. So I drew 2 lines that converged, and I asked this clairvoyant what was going on. And they said, well, there's a spiral that started very tight at the vertex of the 2 lines, and then again gets wider and wider and just kind of follows the line around until it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew immediately that these 2 lines converging was creating a magnetic field. So I ran a bunch of tests on converging lines, and I had a fluxgate magnetometer at the time, and I could actually measure a magnetic field by the converging of these lines. I mean, the lines were just drawn. You could use sticks, any kind of material, magnetic, non-magnetic, wire. They all created a magnetic field when they converged. And so I had a friend of mine in California run a test. His name is Joe Parr. He's passed on now, but he and I were in close contact on a lot of experiments and stuff. And he had a magnetometer, and he ran some of the same tests. He took a plastic ball and drove some wooden chopsticks into the ball so they all converge at the same point. And he could measure magnetic field that way also. So we basically verified this in the lab and also with the clairvoyant. So then I started working with a clairvoyant. We tried a bunch of different shapes and came up with a lot of stuff. It's all shown in the Shape Power book. It's more than a treatise. It's actually, 15, 20 chapters maybe.
Yeah.
But we came up with various shapes. For example, if you take a pyramid shape, they talk about pyramid energy.
Yep.
There's some kind of energy created by the pyramid. Well, that was one of the things that put this whole thing in perspective. Is that if you see the pyramid books back then, written by Flanagan and some other guys, was that the pyramid energy would appear with just the edges of the pyramid. You didn't have to have a solid pyramid or a filled-in pyramid or a covered pyramid. All you need is the lines, the 4 lines of creating the pyramid and the 4 lines creating the base. So based on my converging line experiments, I had a bunch of pyramids, different kinds, and I ran tests on the pyramids, and there is a magnetic field getting created at the intersection of the lines of the 5 corners, the top and the 4 bottom lines. So that verified the pyramid energy, and it also explained why there was a concentration of this etheric energy or this strange energy. Nobody knew what to call it. I call it etheric energy at the 1/3 light level. Now, if you take and analyze this thing from a mathematical point of view, the convergence of all the lines is at the 1/3 level, 1/3 height, just a geometric fact. And so what was happening is that these 5 corners are focusing the ether into this one spot. And when I published the book, a lot of interesting things happened. I received a book written in Chinese. Well, it's actually Korean, but Chinese offshoot. And it had pictures in this thing. And I finally got a hold of the scientist that wrote this book. He had sent it to me. And through our communications, he was able to tell me that they had built a double pyramid, pyramids facing each other. And they had put a gold coin at the 1/3 light level on the top level, and then at the bottom they had a little, like a platform. And they were actually able to create another gold coin absolutely identical to the one on the top pyramid. Now, I've never been able to run this experiment or test it out, but it sure has all kinds of wild potential.
Yeah.
Because it fits in with a whole bunch of other stuff that I've since discovered. And I basically you can call it shape power or patterns physics. I like the word pattern physics because they're all patterns.
Yeah. Because it also works with cylinders and cones and stuff like that, right? It's not just lines.
Right. You can take a cylinder and well, let's take a circle as the like the start of a cylinder, and the focus of all of the side of the circle is the center of the circle. So there is a etheric force field that creates the center of the circle. Now, if you extend this to 3 dimensions, you got a cylinder, and there's like a pillar of etheric energy that's more intense at the center of the cylinder. And it's based. If you ever study geometry, a circle is basically an infinite number of converging lines. So this fits into the converging line theory again.
So when you say that the etheric energy is more powerful in these spots, does that also imply a difference in gravity or something going on with gravity as well? Or is that just electromagnetism? Or is it electro as well, or just magnetism?
No, what it is a concentration of etheric energy. If you think about space, even though we normally don't sense the energy in space, if you do the proper type of experiments, you can prove that there is an energy in space.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go through all the math and everything. Our current science is to poo-poo this whole thing.
Yeah, they would call it dark energy, probably, right?
Yeah, well, they call it dark energy. They call it all kinds of crap. and they got the string theory and the various types of theories on this whole thing.
Planck theory.
QED and, quantum electrodynamics and quantum mechanics. And, of course, there's Einstein's gravitational theories. These all got holes in them. And the holes can only be filled in if you start treating space with an energy. That energy, what I call the ether. You can call it anything you want, dark energy, puke energy, or whatever you want. But there is an energy in space, and that energy can be concentrated. So what the cylinder or like a cube or something is doing is concentrating the ether. It's making more intense. It's like a battery's an intense focus of electrical energy because of the chemical action of the battery. But the ether is like a concentration of this.
And you can do this just by...
Pardon?
You can accomplish this just by putting like the physical structure of a cylinder in space?
Yeah. Physical cylinders,
anywhere.
physical cubes,
Anywhere.
spheres.
So could you multiply that? Could you do like a cylinder within a cylinder within a cylinder and start like multiplying the energy?
Yeah. Yeah, you would multiply the force. That's a way to intensify it.
So what kind of energy are we talking about?
The ether.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what's the potential?
What's the power? Like,
potential?
It's pretty subtle, isn't it?
Well, it's a subtle energy. People that are sensitive to the energy, some like a real, true clairvoyant, not one of these phony baloney psychics, but a true clairvoyant can see the energy and see what it does. For example, I was running a bunch of tests, gold detection. Gold is physical substance. Any kind of substance is a concentration of the ether. Only it's in a specific format. Now, the other thing that this whole thing falls out is I ran a friend of mine, Paul Stowe, and he was working with a doctor at UC Berkeley, probably one of the labs, Lawrence Labs, and they came up with a ether theory, and they treated the ether as a hydrodynamic superfluid. It has certain properties. But if you treat space as this hydrodynamic superfluid, you can use the standard wave equations for a liquid material, only you use the ether, and you can derive all of the parameters for space, gravity, electric, you name the force, they can derive it. They derived it with this one paper. I mean, it was fantastic. And I contacted Paul Stowe at the time, and we talked a lot about this stuff. But basically, like what's an electron or a proton? They fall out of this theory of these that Stowe and Minks worked on. A proton and a neutron the only difference is the size. They're both rotations in the ether. They're donuts, like a donut shape.
Like a torus?
A torus rotates on its axis, and it rotates within the torus itself.
Yeah.
And what it does, it acts like a siphon, and it pulls the ether down through this torus, and the torus has a certain amount of resistance to the ether flowing through it. That resistance is gravity. That's what causes gravity. So the two basic particles, protons and electrons, both have that same property, and they're practically identical in all their physical properties that they've measured. And a neutron, which they try and claim is a stable particle, it's only stable for up to 15 minutes. That's, as far as I'm concerned, is BS to call it a stable particle. The only two stable particles are the proton and the electron. And they form the basis for gravity. Because they resist the ether flowing through them. And that resistance on that rotating torus is the gravity field. That's how simple the whole thing is. And the electric field is a concentration of the ether between 2 points. And what happens is when you got that, the ether tries to equalize between those 2 points, assuming you got them isolated. That's an electric field. A magnetic field is a rotation ether. That we're back to the converging line thing.
Yeah.
And that's how simple all this is. We don't have to go to QED and all this wild mechanics and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that falls out of mechanics. But the other problem is where does the ether come from?
Everywhere.
What is the ether? When you answer that question, you're going to understand a lot of things about how the universe functions. But basically, if we go back in history, excuse me, I got a drink.
Sure.
That's fine.
And I think I should mention, too, that this has all been scientifically tested and proven. He's got footnotes at the bottom of the paper as well, and all kinds of graphical pictures and stuff to show it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Shape Power book was really a breakthrough. I mean, there's guys pirating it on Amazon and stuff. I tried to get Amazon straightened out, and Amazon won't pull these guys that are breaking my copyright. Agents, they're just there to make money. So I don't do much stuff with Amazon, but the basic Shape Power book was a fantastic breakthrough. And that was really kind of the beginning where the last 40, 50 years of research, thousands of experiments that I did, all suddenly came together in like probably a few days. And I think I wrote the Shape Power book in 1 month.
That's crazy.
The whole thing it just fell together.
Now,
when something like that happens, you're getting guidance and everything. I would get whole chapters in my head and just sit down and write them out.
Well, we just talked about that with another guest who has a really interesting theory about time, space, energy, and matter. And he had a download. And then you've had a couple near-death experiences, too, that I wanted to bring up before we forget. So do you think that your ability to download this chapter in this book so quickly had anything to do with not only the clairvoyant that you saw that obviously opened something up, but your previous near-death experiences?
Yeah. See, the thing is, let me go back to when I was a little tiny kid. I had 2 near-death experiences. One when I was born. The doctor that when I was born, there was something wrong with my body, and the doctor did some operation on it, but he was a drunk. He didn't do a very good job. This was in Rapid City, South Dakota. Well, anyhow, what happens is I'm out of the body now, and I'm wandering around the hospital. All of a sudden, I see all these nurses running in. My mother's screaming and hollering. She said, "You got to go find out what's wrong with Dan. He's dying." She was getting the inputs from her higher self that something was wrong with my body. So they ran into the crib, and my body, I had lost about half of my blood. I don't know how I was even still alive. And they give me a transfusion or something, and of course then I was back in the body. And I didn't understand what had happened, really. All I knew is I was out of the body, and my mom was creating a big stink in the hospital. That was the first NDE. Well, the next NDE was when I was 8 years old. And that was due to getting carbon monoxide poisoning from an old car that one of my older brothers had. And what happened was we were going out of town, and my dad and my brother Roy got sick. and they pulled over. I was in the back seat of this old Oldsmobile limousine that had floorboards leaking. And I was outside of the body. My dad and my brother were out there heaving their guts out in the field by the car. And they finally realized that I was still in the car. So they ran out, and I watched them pull my body out of the car. And they did, artificial respiration like they did back then. They couldn't revive me. They tried everything. They didn't know about a lot of us, how they do today. And so they rolled the windows down. They hopped back in the car and went back into Sturgis. And they took me to old Dr. Smiley. This is the doctor's actual name, Dr. Smiley. And Smiley was an old, family doctor. He was a good guy. And I was following the car. They were roaring back, this big dust clouds and stuff going out, and I was following this car. And they got to Dr. Smiley's office, and they hauled me in there. And Smiley tried several things. He couldn't revive me, and I was standing over on the side watching Smiley and Dad and my brother Roy, and they were all fretting about it and trying to figure out how to revive him. Then I watched this doctor. He got this big hypodermic needle. It must have been about a foot long, probably more like 3-4 inches. But it's a little tiny kid. And I was laying on this gurney, and the doctor had put something in this hypodermic, and he jammed the needle down into my chest, probably right into the heart, and probably gave me an adrenaline shot. And the next thing I knew, I'm in my body, and I'm heaving my guts out and stuff like that. Well, it turns out, if you've ever done a lot of research on NDEs, which I have since I've had them,
mm-hmm.
There was a book written about what are the long-term effects of someone who had an NDE or several of them when they were very young. And this psychologist found out that he interviewed, I think, hundreds of people, and that had NDEs when they were young, and they all had certain characteristics depending on the intensity of the NDE. So the basic bottom line is that an NDE changes you. Like my NDEs when you're young burns out a lot of the crappy patterns you pick up when you come through the birth channel. The way we were originally designed was your parents were these pristine, extremely high-level people tuned into the universe, had all their powers and things like that. So when they had a child, the child came through all of these wonderful patterns and picked them up. That was the way it was designed. Well, nowadays, some poor kids born in the ghetto with a druggy mother and a crazy father, and they pick up all these horrible patterns that these people had. So it's really a problem for them to ever evolve to a higher level of consciousness. Well, what the NDE does is it breaks the cycle. It breaks the cycle of what happens when you come through that birth channel. It gets rid of a lot of those crappy patterns. All of this junk that you picked up from your parents gets burned out. Because, and if you've ever been around people, my parents, my friends all thought I was just some weird guy. They called me creepy in school when I was in grade school because I was so different. When you can look at somebody and know everything about them, it gets pretty creepy to them. So what happened is when I was young, I was really interested in what had happened to me and what makes the universe tick. And so by the time I was 11 years old, I had gone through all of the chemistry and physics books for high school. And, I hadn't even gone to high school yet. My mother could see that I was a fairly bright kid. So she bought chemistry sets and gave me books and, the Harvard classics and you name it. I did encyclopedias and stuff. So I went through a lot of this stuff. So I was really interested in science. So when I got to high school, I thought, well, I'm going to learn a lot of good stuff. So I found out that I was already knew everything that I was going to talk about in high school. I was taking chemistry and physics was like reviewing stuff I already knew. And I thought, well, that's high school. In grade school, high school, you're not going to learn much because they think you're some dumb kid. And so they're pumping this stuff to you, spoon feeding it to you, and boring the hell out of you. And I thought, well, when I get to college, I'm going to get the etheric world. They're going to really teach me how the universe functions. So I get to college, and I start taking physics and chemistry and mechanics and a bunch of other stuff. I was majoring in electrical engineering at the time. Yeah, it was the same stuff, except in more detail than I knew in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had, due to my NDEs and things, I had experiences with higher beings.
Yeah.
And so I knew that God existed. I didn't understand it at that time. I had looked at a lot of things, but I just didn't understand it. But so in my simple-minded way for a kid, I prayed to God to show me how the universe really functions. And that's what's happened my whole life, is that these great masters, or whatever you want to call them, these great beings, have gradually dumped the concept of how the universe is over the years, like the last 50, 60 years it's been going on.
Well, that's kind
of, pardon?
Keep going. Sorry. That's kind of...
I didn't... Pardon?
That's kind of... You were just going to say?
So basically, the shape art discoveries were like the first jump off. I had studied all kinds of things. I had met, because of that little simple-minded prayer when I was a kid, I had met some of the most fantastic people you can imagine. I mean, people that were not known to the public, but people who taught me stuff. They had libraries and things that did not, they had spent a lifetime collecting alternative science stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was availed of all of this to study it. And plus all of the experiments and things that they had done. So so while I was going to college, I carried on a full-time research in alternative science. And when I finally got out of school and went to work, I got myself equipment, started experimenting and doing stuff and learning more. But I probably did, at least 1,000 experiments during this time. And the net result was sort of when this breakthrough came where the shape power stuff, it was like everything's gelled and started to come into focus.
I was just going to say that. It's like you had to learn all this stuff and go through all this stuff since you were 11, loading yourself up so that it was there, so that you could actually, articulate that when the download sort of happened. Then you could put it out on paper. It's like when an athlete, like a pro athlete, has to practice for 10,000 hours, let's say, they say, right? Like you put so much time in, and then when you're in the moment and you're flowing, all that experience comes through. And it's like, that's what you prepared yourself for all those years.
Yes, that's exactly right. Keely said it in one of his diatribes back in the late 1800s. He said every scientist and the researcher has to go through a period of what he called dead work. I mean, you just got to wade through all this stuff of the past and kind of get it under your belt so that you can make the next leap from that.
Yeah, exactly. Even subconsciously, right? It's not like you're extracting it on purpose. It's just all there for the taking.
Yeah. So you absorb all of this stuff, and then these great beings, I call them ascended masters, they start giving you the real pure quill about how it all fits together.
Wow.
And so the first thing that happened was this Shea Power book. Well, then the next thing that happened was this. I get visions, some stuff. I'll be waking up in the morning and I'm not really on the body, and they'll show me stuff because you'll pick it up and remember it. And they show what had happened is I had been going up to Tucson, and we'd go up there shopping, and we'd go to the temple up there, and I'd go visit Joe Blankenship. He was into alternative science too, and he really liked all the shape art that we used to talk about it for hours. And he was into gemology. He was a real big collector of gems and jewels and crystals and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially crystals. And he was always giving me these nice crystals, and then he says, I know you'll find something to do with these. And I hadn't had a clue then. So one of the Saturdays we were coming back home, and I was sitting there in the passenger side. My wife was driving, and I was holding these crystals, and I said, what am I supposed to do with these crystals? What am I supposed to learn from? That's all I did. I mean, I did. This was no big grinding away and trying to get some guidance. I just said, what's the deal with these crystals? Well, the next morning, as I'm waking up, I get this vision flashed in my brain, an absolute, complete device with the crystal, coils, a microcomputer, battery, the whole 9 yards. It was all flashed in my brain. And then, of course, I woke up and I jotted down some notes on the thing. You got to write stuff down so you don't forget what's happened all the time.
Yeah.
And I told my wife about it, and she said, well, my knees have really been bothering me. Especially this one knee's been hurting me. She said, why don't you make this thing, because you got all the stuff to do it, and try it on my knee.
Wow.
So I said, okay. So I spent 2-3 days building this thing and fixing the crystal and the coils and all the electronics and stuff. And I took it into her, and she turned it on and pointed it at her knee for about 3-4 minutes. And the pain went away. I mean, just like that.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is really weird. And it was fantastic. They basically showed me how to build this healing machine. They didn't tell me anything about it. They just showed me the machine. So I did a lot of studying on it. And I built a few of these. I built one of them for a lady up in Tucson. She was into alternative healing and Reiki and a couple other things. So I built her one of these wands. I call it a healing wand. And she took it home and she played around with it. And she didn't have anything wrong with her. But she had a neighbor, this couple, and she loaned it to the wife because the husband had a back surgery about 6 months before. And this poor guy had been in constant pain for 6 months. I mean, he couldn't sleep, he couldn't do anything, he couldn't move around. Anything he did, it hurt like hell. And so she loaned him this healing wand, and the wife treated the husband with it every day. And at the end of 2 weeks, the back was back to normal and healed perfectly.
Wow.
This is the kind of stuff it does.
So
and it's a ton. Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Well, it's just about that. It's from Clint, actually. He wanted us to ask about crystal healing and how you think it works and the best healing wand to make. So when I was reading that question, I had no idea it would be like this complex healing wand with coils and electrical circuits and stuff like that. But can you also just talk about, I guess, crystals in general, if there's any shapes or wand types and how you think it works?
Okay, let's go back to the basic electron model, electron-proton model.
Yeah.
You got a torus zipping around, and you got this energy that's flowing through it, the ether. Why is that electron sustained? Now, if you're sitting there and you're blowing smoke rings, they eventually dissipate. Even though the thing is, the forces don't last and they dissipate. Well, the electron's got like a 70 million year half cycle. Now, it's not going to deteriorate ever, period. I mean, hell's going to freeze over before that thing deteriorates. So that was one of the big questions. Why is it sustained? It turns out that up the food chain, beyond Jesus level, I mean, like Saint Germain and Jesus, some of these beings. Someone asked Saint Germain, he says, how far does this evolution go? And Saint Germain said, I know beings as far above me as I am above an ant. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a fact. I've seen some of these great beings, and I've met them. They've man, I mean, you can't believe some of the stuff that these beings, how they operate. I mean, we're little ants compared to them. But anyway, up the food chain, past the sun to the galaxy, is a great being. And this great being sustains this entire galaxy and radiates patterns of perfection out through the whole galaxy to be used by conscious beings like us, like these masters. And those patterns are what sustain. One of the patterns is an electron. And the electron is sustained by this pattern as it gets energized and constantly energized by the universe. That's why the electron exists as it's an evolving being now once it gets created. And it's going to go through a whole life cycle. The great being that created our sun said that the destiny of every electron, if it wants, is to become a sun.
Oh, I love that.
Like, isn't that a fantastic statement?
Because keep going.
And we're in that evolutionary chain, that spiritual evolutionary chain. We're in that chain we're obviously way beyond electrons. We're way beyond these elemental beings that create a lot of stuff in nature. We're not ascended yet, like beloved Jesus and great masters Saint Germain and Katumi and
Buddha
and Moria and all some of these other great beings. I mean, there's lots of known beings out there that are really great masters that we know about. So what's happened is that as we evolve, we build up our capabilities. That's what we're doing. And as long as these capabilities are constructive, they're sustained by the natural perfection of the universe, because these patterns are part of that flame, that those patterns that radiate out from the center of the galaxy. So those patterns that we develop are maintained by this perfection. So as we evolve up the chain, we accumulate more and more of this perfection. Now, I call this pattern, this aggregated set of patterns that flow out of the center of the galaxy, the master power flame. And there's a reason for that. I'll get into that, if you want to keep going with this stuff. But the master power flame has all the patterns to create perfection, create a perfect universe.
Okay.
And here at this level, we look around and say, this doesn't look like a very perfect universe. We got all these crime and and all these hate and the bad vibes and the nasty crime stuff going on and things. Well, that's not part of the universe. It's eventually going to get cleaned up and cleaned out. I mean, it's going to go away. You got terrorists; they're going to be gone. There will be no terrorism, eventually. But in the meantime, we're down here learning our lessons. I've had a bunch of stinking lessons that really bug me. What the heck out of me? I've got health problems that I've overcome. I've had things like let me give you a really interesting example of karma.
Yeah.
Karma is actually the result of misqualified energy or bad energy that you've got that you're clinging on to or doing something wrong. Now, a few years back, we were up in Phoenix at a conference, and the break for the conference, we had to go get lunch. So we went into Sweet Tomatoes to get, kind of a salad, all kinds of different foods, and you've probably been to one of them. I think they're all over the country. And we were in line, we were picking up all this salad stuff. And we get down there to the cash register, and there's a nice, pretty girl taking our money, and there's a kid working there helping the cash girl. He's obviously a Muslim. And I thought, oh, shit, another goddamn Muslim here in the United States is going to be a terrorist. And I never thought another thought about it. And we took our food and went in there and started eating. We were in the room. And I get finished with the food, and then you can go get dessert. You can get all kinds of stuff for dessert. And so I went up and got some dessert, and I was coming back to the table to where my wife was sitting. And there was this manager of the restaurant, and he had this Muslim boy helping him, nice kid. And the manager told the Muslim kid to go get some. So the kid turned around and started walking off. And I was walking into the room, and the kid wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I obviously wasn't either. And his shoe kicked my foot. I was wearing sandals. The kick hit my big toenail and flipped it off.
Oh!
Talk about hurt like heck. They called the paramedics and all this hoopla, and they ended up getting the toenails fixed. But I sat down and I really thought about this, and I said, that was because of my bad thoughts and feelings about this nice kid that had somehow gotten to the United States and was working at a constructive job and trying to better himself. And it really taught me this lesson, not to have bad feelings about people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be blessing everybody and everything.
Yeah.
And of course, the few interfaces I've had with these great beings that are up the food chain is that there is no negativity. Everything is, there is so much love and peace and purity and power and consciousness of perfection. There's nothing of the negative in it. So one of the lessons is that if you want to make the grade, you better get rid of your bad feelings about stuff.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Otherwise, the karma is going to come out and bite you.
So how about how do crystals fit into that? Then are crystals sort of like the epitome of the master power flame, like the pattern of that perfection?
Okay, At the core of every proton and electron is a master power flame flowing through it. So really, your body is built of all these chemicals and stuff that have protons and electrons. And you got little beings whose job it is to take the perfection that is flowing through these protons and electrons and keep your body in good shape and stuff, as long as you don't have bad feelings and disqualify the energy and make yourself get old and decrepit and eventually kick yourself off. But that's where this perfection comes from. Is the protons and electrons flowing through? There's only stable particles, so that's where they got to come from. There's no other particles that are stable. You know, you can say a neutron is a stable particle. The last 15 minutes, if you want to call 15 minutes stable. But the thing is, the protons and electrons have this radiance of perfection always flowing through them. And that radiance is a master power flame. It just flows through the protons and electrons. So at the crystal level, let's say you got a simple crystal like a
quartz, like a clear quartz.
Quartz is silicon dioxide. All right, it's got two chemicals. It's got a bunch of protons and electrons in it. And so if you know how to stimulate the crystal, it will radiate out in a beam the master power flame.
Huh.
That's how simple it is. So these people that think, the crystal has all these healing powers and stuff, well, it does have healing powers, but so does everything else. But unless you know how to stimulate and energize and focus those patterns, then it's not going to do any good.
So how do you do that? Is that something you can do with multiple different ways, or?
No, you don't need a laser. I made all kinds of discoveries after this, but basically the vision for the healing wand is that the coil around the crystal and the voltage that goes through it, you got to have the voltage in the right direction, it stimulates and pushes the master power flame out through as a beam of light. So if you got somebody that you point this healing wand as, this lightsaber, you point this lightsaber, this healing saber, at someone, that master power flame is going to go into their body. Now, you got to get into the structure of the body of why it heals.
Mm-hmm.
In the first place, you got 4 lower bodies. You got a physical body, mental body, emotional body, and etheric body.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those are made from the substance of those levels. The physical is made from physical matter.
Yep.
The mental body is made from the finest substance of the etheric realm. What realm is it? Yeah, the etheric realm. It's made from the finest substance of the etheric realm. And the emotional body is made from the finest substance of the water element. So you got air, earth, water, fire, and the fire is the etheric element. Okay, the etheric body was made by your higher self. Everybody's got a higher self.
Yep.
The higher self made the physical body. It made it through via the
master power flame.
The etheric body has all of the patterns of perfection for your physical body and your other bodies. And so what your higher self does is it gathers the substance from these 4 realms and it builds the first 3 bodies, the mental, emotional, etheric bodies. And at that point, the being that is you without a physical body can now manifest in a physical body. And so you can choose to manifest in a physical body. So your parents build build, and they build the matrix, and your higher self actually helps you build a physical body with all of the patterns of good plus your karma. For example, people wonder, why was Joe Shimolian born blind or crippled or something? Well, those were patterns that were built by that person, Joe Shimolian, in a previous existence. And so those patterns are still hanging around him, and until he dissipates that negative energy, he's going to have problems. Now, there's a solution to all of this, very simple. One of the patterns, well, some of the patterns, there are several of them. One of the patterns in the master power flame is what's the violet ray. You've probably studied yoga maybe, and there's like 7 rays. Well, the violet ray is one of them. Well, one of the qualities of the violet ray is that it transmutes transmutes negative patterns. So if you use this violet ray, you can transmute these negative things, like Joe Shimolian can call to his higher self to transmute this negative energy and eventually perfect himself and go to a higher level. Huh. And that's basically the process of it. Now, the healing ray from the Master Power Flame healing ray from the healing wand intensifies the pattern of the etheric body. And by intensifying the pattern of the etheric body, it affects the physical body. And so by my wife pointing that healing wand at her knee, the pattern of the knee and the etheric body manifested perfection in her knees. And that's how healing was meant to take place. You studied the Bible. I studied the Bible 7 ways, and it makes sense, all of them, if you accept the basic premise of each of the 7 ways. So the Bible isn't anything. There's a lot of simpler stuff to study. But you talk, in the New Testament, there's a few things that Jesus talked about was that, he healed these people, nearly instantly. And what he did as an adept is somebody that's a master at this level. What he did was as an adept was put so much of the master power flame, the violet flame energy, into the illness that it transmuted the energy, and the perfection of the etheric body manifested healing in the physical body. That's how it all takes place. This whole thing comes simple. It all falls together.
No, I like the way you describe it. It makes sense. It makes sense on an intuitive level, and it seems to make sense on a physical level too. I mean, we've talked about Reiki and all this energy healing a lot as well, and crystals. So it's nice to hear a sort of a coherent description of how it works.
Yeah, right. Like Reiki is pumping this energy into the physical body, and it's intensifying the patterns of perfection and healing the physical body. That's how Reiki works.
Yeah.
That's how all these work. All the same way.
So Dan, staying on the same vein, I mean, I've got all these questions in my head. I want to ask you about some of your newer work as well. Like we started at the power, the shape power, but another thing that Clint, one of our listeners who recommended you, is asking about, and this is really interesting. I'm sure Darren has lots to say about this as well. Is at the end of your shape power book, on page 141, there's 3 sacred energy movements. So you've got a chapter there on energy movements. Do you use them, and could you has he found anything more effective? And could he go into a bit of detail?
The sacred energy movements. That was another vision. That was an interesting thing too. How I got those. I was at work one day, and the person that was in charge of this project And I went to a meeting. It was a luncheon where they were saying goodbye to one of the guys, and the luncheon was kind of boring, and the food was lousy. And so we came back, and I was working at the desk, and this person who was in charge of the project had their computers. They were working on them and stuff, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I got up and went down. I went to the bathroom in this facility, and as I was coming up to the bathroom, this one guy come walking out, and he said, "You're the problem with this whole blankety blank stuff." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you caused me to get kicked off of the computers of that project." I said, "I never kicked you." I said, "Who's in charge of it? I'm not in control then." Well, he got mad and he knocked me down on the ground. And this was the lunch hour, nobody around. And I was down on the ground, and he was ready to smash me again. And out comes the secretary of the manager for that whole facility. And she said, "What the hell is going on here?" And this guy says, "Well, I just helped him down off the floor." And I said, "Well, please note that he just knocked me down, and he was getting ready to plug me again." So she runs out the door and gets the manager that was in the car to come back in and get things settled. So one of the things that I wondered, why this happens to me. I've worked in dozens of companies. I'm a consultant across the United States at the time, and I've never had anybody assault me at work. It was an unheard of thing, and it's really unusual. And so I said, I really need to get more protection. I need to be able to protect myself with energy and stuff. That's all I said. The next morning, I was out of the body, up in this realm. And these great beings, they were being like 10, 12 feet tall, radiating light. And they said, "We're going to show you a few things."
Huh.
And the main being said, and he waved his hand, he said, "There's a green energy that flows across the earth. It's been put there recently that flows from the South Pole to the North Pole. It follows the magnetic lines." And he showed me this energy, and then he gave me this scooping exercise to do for it. The next thing, I'm back in the body. I said, "Well, that's cool." So I wrote this thing down, and my wife and I started doing this the scoops exercise. Well, then about a month later, I had another vision. I was out of the body, and this great being says, in Orgone, and he showed me another energy. That's how I got those 4 exercises that are in that book.
So they're called scoops, right? Snips, sweeps, and what's the
cutter?
last? And cutter.
Are any diagrams?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
any diagrams?
They're very interesting exercise. The green energy does exist. This clairvoyant person, I told them about it, and so they live near a golf course. So she got up one morning and saw this energy. Says there is a green energy flowing across.
Did you?
And she says, "Pardon?"
Oh, geez. Okay, continue on. Sorry, I've got a couple questions, but continue on.
Well, anyway, there is a green energy. It has a wavelength. It's actually a wave, like a wave that, like you're looking at the ocean. It's got these big rollers that are coming in. And the wavelength looked like it was about 18, 20, 22 inches. And so I wrote all this stuff down. And we were I was able to verify this wavelength. A bunch of research done by a guy named Dr. Larry Babcock. Babcock study was a PhD in geology, and he did a bunch of studies up in the Iron Range in Minnesota or somewhere up there where they have all this iron stuff. And he noticed that there was all these layers of Earth, different types of layers. And so he did a study, up in that area and some others, and found out that there was a common wavelength or a distance of these layers. And it turned out that it was this same distance that flows this energy from north to south, this green energy. About 22 inches or so.
Huh. Have you ever heard of...
So we have an exact size of this. And it turns out that this wavelength is also something that came from the ancient Hindu stuff. There is an ancient science called Vastu, V-A-S-T-U, that was part of the Hindu science back 30, 40,000 years ago. And they have certain lengths that they use to build the temples for the Hindu Indian temples. And they use these wavelengths in the building of these temples. And they're all related to this other wavelength of this energy that flows across the earth. And it's amazing how much of this stuff all falls together. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for days about this. I mean, wild correlations. I mean, here's something 40,000 years ago that correlates to something I got today. And the guy named Babcock got it here when he was doing his PhD thesis.
Yeah. Have you heard of the green flash when the sun sets on a perfect horizon with no interference of clouds or anything? As soon as the sun sets over that horizon, there's a big green flash?
Yeah, I've seen that. We were living out in the South Pacific, and a couple of times as the sunset would drop over, you'd drop over the horizon, and so we were on an island, so it would drop down in the ocean.
Yeah.
And you'd see this green flash coming across the country, across the whole earth.
Wow.
It's amazing. It does exist.
So
go ahead.
Well, the other thing I want to mention is, did you know that these movements that you're talking about is really interesting because it's something that just came into the mainstream culture with this TV show. And it sounds like it's based on your experience. I mean, these people are having
they're able to do healing with a couple of the movements.
Yeah, near-death experiences, and they come away with meeting a being. It's a person, but a being, and they come back with these movements, and they all do these movements together, and they heal, and they basically trying to find the fifth movement to open up this dimensional doorway.
I'm not quite following it. Is it some new phenomenon that's happening?
Well, it's a really popular TV show. Like Darren and I have both watched it. It's called OA, but it sounds like it's based on your experience. It's amazing to me, the correlation.
It's like stealing your info.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you something. These writers call me up and ask me questions, and then I find out 2 years later that they've written a TV show based on the goofy stuff I've been working on.
No way, really?
So it could be. I don't know. I don't have TV. I've got a TV, but all I've got is a DVD to play old movies or something on. We had the TV shut off from cable because there was so much garbage coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would like it though. I mean, I'm telling you, this show is based on your thing, like the NDEs, the movements, and it's quite amazing. I mean, I think you would really get a kick out of the show. But yeah, I know what you mean about the TV.
Yeah. Well, if I see the show, what was the name of it again?
OA. Actually, it's on Netflix, and it's just the two letters OA. That's the
OA.
Yeah, that's the sort of the name of the person. Like when she meets this person in this other dimension through a near-death experience, she comes back with the name OA, like OA. It's really interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. I'll keep an eye out for it. OA.
Well,
if you don't have Netflix, you can borrow my Netflix account to watch it. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that on the air.
It's interesting that, you see, what is happening is that the Earth is moving into a higher vibration area of the universe. We evolved 27,000 years around
the Great Year,
the ecliptic.
Yeah.
And we're coming into an area of higher vibration. These cycles were all known by the ancient yogis, the Hindus. The cycles are
the yugas.
Yugas.
Yeah.
Yugas. Yugas. And we've just come out of Kali Yuga, like 10, 20 years ago, and we're starting to see an uplift in consciousness and things. And it's doing two things. One is that these higher energies are putting a lot of pressure on people to change. And of course, we've got the groups, we got the fundamentalist groups in Christianity, and we got the fundamentalist guys in the Quran. And they're all resisting these changes because they're going to have to move to a higher level of consciousness. They're going to have to give up a lot of their fixed beliefs. Mm-hmm. The Bible isn't the Word of God. It's got so many errors in it, I can't count them all. And I don't think anybody could either. And the Quran is the same way. The Quran is actually a conglomeration of books that were a part of the Bible. I studied, back there in the 60s, I studied every single religion on this planet as if I was going to live it. And I tell you, I learned a lot of stuff, but like anything, the net result was that I got shown the next level. I kept moving on up like I was being pushed up the ladder.
Huh.
And that's the way it happened. It was a rather interesting experience. Like I had this one friend of mine, Larry Wilson, was always dribbling out stuff about like Keely or Tesla, or positive thinking. And so he would have some book that was kind of a summary of it, and so I would read this thing. I would have all kinds of correlations to that with stuff else. And the next thing I know, I find another book that's already been done. Somebody's already done it out there. So I gave up this writing of books, and I just studied myself wherever I could find information.
So, Dan, do you think that, speaking of the Earth going through the end of the Great Year and the Kali Yuga, do you think that has anything to do, and the change in consciousness and people waking up, or that shift you were talking about, do you think that has anything to do with the Schumann resonance going way up, or are you aware that the Schumann resonance has gone up?
Well, I'll talk about it in a minute. I need to go make a pit stop.
Okay.
Okay, Darren, I'm back.
Okay, we're here.
Welcome back.
Okay, well, what was the last question?
Well, it was about the Earth moving through the Kali Yuga and the galaxy, and whether that had something to do with. And did you know that apparently the Schumann resonance has gone way up?
Okay, the Schumann resonance hadn't gone up. That's a lot of BS. I did a research on this, and the Schumann resonance is due to radio waves that bounce off the, I think it's the ionosphere, as a radio wave goes around the Earth. And that's the Schumann resonance. It's like there's a cavity between the ionosphere and the Earth. And that's a fairly fixed amount. I mean, the cavity changes higher to lower during the day and night because of the Earth's ionization from the sun. But the basic frequency doesn't change. And so all of these so-called scientists claim that the Schumann resonance is changing is all BS. It's my personal humble opinion.
Wow.
Humble.
Well, maybe they're trying to make a case for like HARP and chemtrails or something like that affecting the ionosphere.
Well, what I'm wondering is if could it be affected by gravity?
No.
Like if something big was
an ionization. It's an ionization phenomena. You get this layer of ionization up there, and the radio waves bounce off the ionization, and they bounce off the Earth, and you get to go bouncing around the Earth.
Huh.
And trying to correlate to a lot of these things, these people think they've got the handle on stuff, and they've really never researched it. If you it's like people saying that gravity's changing. Well, it's been changing up and down for the last zillion years that the Earth's been here, like 4 billion years. And the gravity is due to the amount of etheric energy that the Earth gets. So if you pump the Earth with a lot of etheric energy, it's going to affect the gravity field. You can build a flying saucer based on these principles that I just told you.
So
if you can get a material lined up crystal-wise, you can create an anti-gravity effect. Now, I've done it in the lab. It's not very much, but because you need to do some really fancy engineering to build that type of crystal.
Yeah.
Nanocrystals and stuff. Yeah.
So with that.
But, so this thing that the magnetic field is changing, it changes up and down over the years. You can take a look at these layers of material that get deposited on the Earth as the Earth grows. And then during all of these 4 billion years, the magnetic field has had a number of different orientations. And so, the magnetic field is changing. The gravity field doesn't change too much, except that the Earth's getting bigger. See, everything grows. The Earth is a growing entity, basically. The Gaia theory is not too far off. It's kind of silly the way they've done it, but the Earth is a growing entity. As it grows bigger and bigger, it's going to become a sun.
Is that due to pair production?
Pardon?
How does it grow? Is it just through gathering material, or is it growing through some other sort of means from the inside out?
It's doing both. It's growing bigger because of the accretion of the material of the Earth. The Earth grows about an inch a year. This is kind of a rough rule of thumb. There was a guy, PhD in Germany. I don't think of the guy's name. I can't think of it offhand. He's a friend of mine. I've met him at conferences and we've talked about this stuff. But basically, he's come up with a new theory for the Earth. Now, he's saying that there is an energy, he thinks it's the neutrinos, come zipping through the Earth, and they focus into the center. His idea is that the Earth's a hollow ball.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the old hollow Earth theory, and it's coming back again. But this guy's got the math for it, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a nice layout.
It sounds like the electric universe theory that we've talked about on the show,
or the hollow Earth theory, or the growing Earth theory.
Yeah. The Earth's growing. For example, take Jupiter. It's a huge planet. And it has got to the point where it emits more energy than it takes in from the sun.
Huh.
And our scientists can't figure out how this happens. Well, the simple fact is that when you get enough mass together, you're going to get some nuclear things happening. And so you're going to start creating more energy out than in. You got a neutron, proton, and all this interreaction. I forget the name of it. I mean, I've forgotten more physics than I ever knew. And so Jupiter's putting out more energy, and it's basically a sun already. It just haven't gotten real bright. It's a bright star out there as far as Elias albedo goes, but it's not like our sun in the center of our solar system. And as the planet grows, it'll eventually be, it moves out into other orbits and it will eventually become a sun in itself and start creating its own
planetary
solar
system. Yeah, solar system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, creating its own solar system like ours, like we live in. Everything's growing. It's a growing universe. There was an ancient, not ancient, it was about 1800, Disraeli. He was a English philosopher, politician, and probably BS expert of some kind. and he came out with this statement. He said, the universe is a, let's see, how did he put it? Got to get this right. The universe is a machine for growing gods. Yeah, I thought that was, if you really think about it and start understanding how things are going, that was probably the most profound statement that anybody's made for hundreds of years. The universe is a machine for making gods.
Are we the gods?
Well, we will be, because he's saying everything expands, everything grows, including us, right? Like every lifetime, every learning. So our energy, so eventually we'll all become gods, and our electron will become a sun, and Jupiter will become its own, the center of its own solar system.
Yeah, everything keeps growing like that.
So I wonder if life everywhere eventually turns out to be human. That was an interesting thing I was thinking about the other day, about someone had sent in how disappointed Graham's going to be when he figures out that all aliens are just humans on different planets.
Yeah. So anyway, we're back to the Schumann resonance. Do you understand what I was saying about that? It doesn't really change that much.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like and the magnetic field is the same thing. It goes up and down, it changes, and has changed many times over the last 4 billion years. These different layers. And that was one of the things that Dr. Babcock came out with. Sorry, Babcock guy?
Mm-hmm.
Was how the Earth is growing. And this physicist in Germany, I can't think of his name. He says the same thing. What he did was he had some of his grad students get one of these big weather balloons, round weather balloons,
mm-hmm.
and they drew all the continents on them, and
blew it up.
They drew them like Pangea. Pangea is this big landmass. It was the big,
all the continents together. Yeah.
All of the continents together. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word. Thank you very much.
Supercontinent.
So when you blow this balloon up, Pangea breaks up and looks like where the Earth is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a show all about the growing Earth theory with Neil Adams. He's actually done a really good job on his YouTube channel of really visualizing it on not only on Earth, but on like Mars
the moons of Jupiter.
Europa. He does a really good job of doing it on Europa. Yeah, he does it on a bunch of different planets.
Yeah, I know. It's just fantastic, all of this stuff. I think guys like you doing a nice show like this and bringing all these nutcases like me in to talk about our crazy discoveries is waking people up. I mean, there's got to be a lot of wonderful people out there that are asking all these questions, and hopefully you bring in some of us that can answer a few things for them that'll help them along the path to their own self-mastery and spiritual evolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the great thing about it as well is you've all got these interesting stories and spiritual awakenings or some sort of large synchronicity that's shifted you into your work. I mean, it really is I feel like there's a platform for all these people that have done all this research. You've dedicated your life to decades of this research, and it's very interesting, and it simplifies things, and it makes, people look at our current scientific paradigm in a new way, and maybe we're not, we don't know everything we think we know. It's really brilliant. I mean, we also had on Dale Pond from the Pond Institute, who makes these dynaspheres like Keely had tried to develop, and I was wondering if you've been following those guys as well, and if you've ever heard of the dynaspheres.
Dale was a big fan of Keely, and so he and I used to talk about stuff. I don't subscribe to his dinosaurs thing. He thinks he's channeling Keely and some other stuff, and I think Dale's been smoking too many cigarettes myself. But like one of my old crazy buddies said, he said everybody's got a nose. It's like everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah.
And and sooner or later, truth comes out.
Yeah.
I remember one of the good things that Dale Pond has done is try and aggregate a lot of the Keely stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of the really good Keely stuff was done by my friend Larry Wilson back in the 50s. This was one of the guys I studied in his library. He had the most fabulous Keely stuff, and he actually built a dinosphere back then.
Oh.
And he showed how it works and all of this stuff, and there was nothing magical about it, wasn't it? Dale's got these things that each of these things are chrome plated and gold plated and stuff, and try and make these things as a focus of spiritual energy, and that's not the way it works. It's just not what Keely was doing. Keely was a much more advanced being. There was a book that Larry Wilson, my friend, found called Dashed Against the Rock. And Dashed Against the Rock was ostensibly written by William J. Colville. This was back in the, I think, late 1800s or maybe early 1900s. And it was actually a manuscript that Keely gave to Colville, and Colville put it in the form of like a story in a paper. And that's where that book came from. It didn't fall off a bookshelf and hit Dale in the head or anything like that. It was a book that came from Larry Wilson and the research that he did. You ever heard of Otis T. Carr?
No.
Okay. Carr, this was back in the 50s and 60s. Carr was real big on the UFO thing. And Carr claimed that he could build a UFO and show the anti-gravity principle. Well, Carr was actually talking to my friend Larry Wilson and a guy named Eugene Carini. Wilson and Carini had broke the code on how to build a gravity coil. And the gravity coil was contracted by Otis T. Carr to be put in his flying saucer model. But Carr was a real big egotistical jackass, and he took Carini and Wilson's coils and installed them himself. He said, "I don't need you guys." So what happened was he didn't know how to install them, and he screwed up the installation and wrecked the coils. So when he did the demonstration of this flying saucer he built, the pictures are all out there on the internet. If you look up Otis T. Carr, and of course people have built Otis T. Carr up to this big thing, but he was really more like a Barnum and Bailey guy, kind of a showman. But the reason he could do a lot of this stuff was guys like my friend Larry Wilson and Carini. I knew both of those guys, and I studied under Wilson for quite a while. When I was going to college, I was carrying on a full-time research on alternate science plus my college stuff. And when I would have a free afternoon or a Saturday, I'd call up Larry and ask him if I'd come over and study in his library. And I'd go there and he'd let me study something, or he'd have something there he'd show me. He'd show me anti-gravity stuff, all kinds of crazy things. and some of the experiments and things he'd been doing. And Larry was an intuitive. I mean, he was really a good guy. He's one of the best guys as far as machining and making models and stuff that I ever knew. I never met anybody that could make models like Wilson could. And that's how I learned all this stuff. And Carini and Wilson and I went back east to set up a Honda motorcycle dealership. This is old history. And it turned out to be a scam. Carini was scamming both of us to take what money I had been working on in the summer to go back to college. And I finally, after a couple of weeks, realized it was happening. So I went back home and got myself straightened out. But Wilson was really into the Hollow Earth stuff. And he had some friend of his that dropped by when I was over there one time. And this friend had told him he knew how to get into the Hollow Earth and had done so.
Oh.
And so Wilson went up to Mount Shasta, and there's a lava tube on the side of Shasta that was there, and Wilson and another guy, I don't know who it was, they built up 2 weeks worth of dried foods and water and things, and they went down in this lava tube, and they were gone for 2 weeks, and they had enough to get back out. And this guy said, I think we should go back. And Larry said, no, I want to go another week. And so the guy gave him whatever food and water that he could spare. And Larry went another week down this lava tube. It just went down, 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 for miles and miles and miles. And Larry never found anything. They were looking for this Hollow Earth. And a couple of years later, this guy that claimed he'd been in the Hollow Earth said he'd found another place to get in. It was up in Canada. Well, Larry sold all his stuff, took his library, and gave this fabulous library to a friend of ours in Iowa. And Larry took off to Canada and was never heard from again.
Wow.
I mean, some of these stories.
You know what part of Canada?
People. Yeah, that's amazing. So whether he got into the Hollow Earth or not, I have no idea. But the guy disappeared, and he disappeared looking to go into the Hollow Earth. You got all these stories about beings in the center of the Earth and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've probably heard those stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Then those stories of Antarctica having an entrance and all kinds of that. So what are some of the, before we lose track on your new, do you have any new work that you want to talk about? I know you've probably talked about the shape power stuff all the time, but is there anything new that you want to bring up?
Okay, how much time we got left?
As much as you like.
Huh?
As much as you like.
Okay, I'll talk about, another vision that I had was this being told me I had to work on etheric energy.
Okay.
So when I got popped back in my body, I wrote it down on the notepad by my bed. And then I flopped off to sleep, and the next morning I woke up and here's this thing, etheric energy, sitting there on the notepad. And I said, what the heck do I know about etheric energy? And so I said, well, I know a few little things. So I started writing stuff down. And I've got 16 chapters now on etheric energy and the various aspects of it. Now, those 16 chapters you can distill probably down into one chapter about the ether and how it functions. This side of life is the electromagnetic side. You got protons, electrons, you got magnetic fields, you got electric fields, you got gravity fields. On the etheric side, you got etheric energy, and the etheric energy can be made into something on this side. And the way it does that is patterns. Everything runs on patterns on the etheric side, and the patterns act as programmers to program the ether to do something. Like you can program the ether to, say, build a diamond. If you've got the right program, it'll build you a diamond, the right shape, size, the whole 9 yards. It'll make you a lump of gold, anything. If you know the pattern. Now, there's several rules about shape.
Mm-hmm.
Patterns don't do anything to the ether unless they're energized.
Mm-hmm.
You got to energize the pattern in the ether to make the pattern do its thing. The patterns are like computer programs. You know, when you energize a computer program, it goes through and executes all instructions and does what it's been programmed to do. And that's how your computer, your cell phone, and all this stuff works. It's the same thing with the ether and patterns. The ether forms the substance to make stuff, and it can make it on any level. You know, there's the etheric levels. There's not just one etheric level. There's a whole raft of levels. There's etheric substance associated with water. Etheric substance associated with physical matter. There's physical substance with mind, et cetera, et cetera. And all of these are patterns in the ether that make this energy, that type of energy. So if you know what the pattern is, you can create anything you want. And you also got to know how to energize it. And of course, that's part of the big secret,
right?
Is energizing patterns. Very few people know how to do that. Of myself, I know maybe 3 or 4 people on the planet that understand energizing patterns. Now, if you get into magic, they talk about patterns and stuff. Chanting creates patterns that does stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like decreeing or chanting or whatever you want to call it creates patterns in the ether, and the ether does things for you. Now, there's certain rules about how the ether transmits energy and patterns. If you've got 2 patterns that are identical, they're in resonance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you energize one pattern, you energize the other pattern automatically because they're in resonance.
Yeah.
So it's called pattern resonance. That's one of the subsets of pattern physics.
Yeah.
Pattern resonance. So you get pattern resonance, and you can do stuff, make a pattern and duplicate the pattern, and energize your pattern. You're going to energize all the others. There's so much stuff you can do with all this. Amazing.
What about sigil magic?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, that's what it is. Well, a sigil is a
pattern creator.
A sigil is a pattern, and so when you energize a sigil, it does stuff for you.
Right.
But there was a kid that called me here 2 years ago. I don't know when. And he said, Mr. Davidson, he said, he says, I'm really interested in all this alternative science. He says, I want to study it. He said, do you think we'll ever get to the point where they have, like on Star Trek, where they got this duplicator? You program it to generate yourself some
the replicator.
English tea.
Replicator, yeah.
Yeah, replicator, that's the word. And I said, yeah, we're going to get there. We're on the pathway to get there. And that's where we're headed. We're going to have a Star Trek type technology.
Well, can you go into... Keep going.
Pardon?
Can you get into how to create this energy? Like, I mean, you don't have to give us the exact details, but 3 or 4 people that can do it. Is it similar to what you did with your crystal wand, or is it something you can do internally with your body, like, or with your mind? I mean, can you generate this energy on your own, or do you need an external influence or external something?
Okay. You don't create energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. The energy is there. It's the ether in various forms. So it has nothing to do with the healing wand. It has nothing to do with anything else. If you go to my website, Aetheric Science, there's a lot of stuff there on patterns. I got another website called the Master Power Flame.
Okay.
And I can put the Master Power Flame around anybody or anything on the planet instantaneously. That's one of the things about the ether, is that pattern resonance is instantaneous transmission of energy. So you could build a computer that had instantaneous operational instructions if it was based on etheric pattern technology. And that's where the computer technology has to go. It has to be it has to operate on this level rather than the electromagnetic, what it's doing now. I put in a proposal to NASA one time, and I got laughed out of the chair, to build a faster than light computer. They thought I was nuts. And I had all the physics and everything, and these guys just thought I was totally out of whack, They couldn't believe that it ain't going faster than light. I've seen in demonstrations 8 times the speed of light. That was simple-minded stuff. So you say, how do you make the ether do stuff? You're not going to create energy. You're going to manipulate it.
Right.
And you got to manipulate it with a pattern to do something. That's what you have to do. And you got to find some way to energize it. One of the things in one of the chapters that I talked about in the Aetheric Science chapters that I've written was the types of energy. There are various gradations of energy. The purest, of course, is what I call the sacred fire. That's that violet flame and the blue flame. Their various rays, and these are the spiritual qualities. That's the highest form of energy. The lowest. Say again.
Like your crown chakra, the purple, the violet.
Okay, the chakra is just a physical pattern, and the energy that flows through it has to be that color. Yeah, it's purple or violet, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You're right about that. But but one of the gradations of energy is down at a lower level, and that's the stuff that Wilhelm Reich discovered. He discovered Orgone.
Yeah.
Orgone energy is being used to supposedly do healing and stuff, and pyramid energy was used at one time. It's the worst possible type of energy you could be using. It's a dirty, filthy energy if you look at it from a pattern standpoint.
Wow, because that's what our friend was asking you about as well, about whether Orgone energy can be whether it's being dangerous.
Well, Orgone, one of the things that Wright come up with is DOR, dangerous Orgone energy, or dangerous Orgone, or something like that, DOR, dangerous Orgone something. Anyhow, it turns out that all Orgone is dangerous. I had friends that were living under a pyramid, and they got so sick that they practically kill themselves living in this pyramid. You can have pure Orgone energy, but it's highly unlikely. There is a higher form. You can even see it if you go outside on a bright sunny day and defocus your eyes, you can actually see these little points of light flitting out in the atmosphere.
See, the squiggly lights. We've been talking about this on the show, Darren. This is the lights I was talking about.
That's the pure form of energy. It's really cosmic light sounds that's radiating out from the sun. It's one of the patterns. And it's a total pure energy. It's like prana. Have you ever studied yoga?
Yeah.
Pranic energy
or chi
is a pure form of energy. You don't want to be messing with orgone energy because these guys are taking crystals and putting them in a plastic matrix to squeeze them and get the energy out of them. Well, you can do that, but the energy is impure. Unless you have totally purified the crystals and you've totally purified the plastics, you're going to create dirty energy, dirty orgone energy.
So I should get rid of those 2 pyramids that I have in my bedroom that are plastic with crystals and copper wires inside them and all that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be messing around with it if they're got crystals in them.
I think there's one of those motherfuckers in here somewhere.
There is. Yeah, you've got a little orgone one in here somewhere too. But I don't understand why it's dirty if a crystal just has this pattern and this energy coming from it. Like what's the difference between the shape power of a pyramid and being inside a pyramid and having it orgone?
Okay. The shape power is fine, but the problem is that the atmosphere of Earth and the substances like the rods that make up your pyramid shape, they have impurities in them. When I say impurities, I mean distorted patterns.
Okay.
Most people don't realize how impure most substance is. Now, I've got machines here that purify crystals. I never use a crystal unless I purified it. I can buy crystals from some of these companies, and I will take it and I will totally remove all negative patterns from them, all hate, all distortions of machining, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say some guy worked on making some glass, and he was having trouble with his wife, and he was cursing everything around.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that the glass now has those patterns in it.
Right. Just like water would pick up those patterns as well.
Yeah, you got this guy in
Japan
that did all the patterns of the water. That was one of the best demonstrations of impurity versus purity of patterns.
Yeah.
And he never really had pure stuff. I mean, he thought he had put nice, running clean water and stuff, but those patterns were totally clear. A good clairvoyant or a good sensitive can tell you how clean something is. When I say clean, I don't mean you scrubbed it with a brush and taking the bristles and the turpentine to it and gotten rid of all the grease and oil. And that's only on the physical level. There are patterns on the etheric level, mental, emotional, etheric levels that qualify substance. You can. I did this demonstration one time, and it scared the hell out of some people. I picked up a rock off the ground, and I asked these people to feel the energy, and I can help them feel the energy. They could feel it was going, really kind of weird and doing stuff. And then I took this rock, this rock that was off the ground, and I purified it using certain higher principles. And I gave it back to them, and they couldn't believe the difference in the rock. Just because there are patterns on the other levels that have to be gotten rid of until you got purity. So when you talk about my healing wand, those crystals are as pure as you're ever going to get.
So how do people clean their own crystals then? How do if I've got all these crystals at home, then how do I purify them? Like, is it your typical New Age thing where you can use sea salt and put them in the moonlight and the water, or use sage or all these other things? Like, how would you do, or even sunlight?
Okay, those only do a certain level of cleaning, purifying.
Yeah.
Or can't you use kyanite too? And doesn't it cleanse other crystals?
Have you ever studied the sacred fire? The various activities, like the violet flame?
No.
Okay, that's how you purify them. You got to use a sacred fire.
Okay.
And the sacred fire is an aspect of the master power flame. That you ask one of these great beings where they get all this energy that they're putting forth, and they get the sacred fire out of the master power flame. Okay. They built up high concentrations of the sacred fire and use it for their creative activities. And that's where it comes from. Now, your higher self can tune in and project the sacred fire for you.
Yeah.
So you can call if you know how to tune to your higher self to blaze the sacred fire through whatever you've got, you can purify it.
Okay, that's...
And you can tell the difference. I mean, you can, like I said, you take the rock experiment. You can pick a rock up off the ground. It's all dirty and grungy. Wash it off, and you can still feel the same vibrations from it. And then you call your higher self and really concentrate on that rock with the sacred fire, and see how the vibrations have changed. Now, there's a lot more to it. I mean, you can. There's ways you can mechanically do it. I mean, when I say mechanically, I mean electronically.
Yeah.
But basically, you got to use some activities of the sacred fire to purify and raise some vibrations. And this energy field that the Earth is moving through, now at this time, are higher concentrations of the sacred fire.
Oh.
And what that's doing is it's leavening the Earth to higher vibration levels, higher consciousness, higher patterns. Like if you look at things 50 or 60 years ago, look at the old farm machinery back then, or the old cars. Look at the cars we have today. I mean, it's the difference between night and day.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just the difference between cell phones, and the old computers.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer to the innate structure of the universe.
It looks a lot like the hard drive of a Mac.
So, lots of good things. Well, what is it, 10:15? What time we start?
Yeah, we went almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have editing, or else you're gonna have my BS on for more than one show.
No, we're good. We put out long shows. This has been an amazing conversation, and time flies when we have these.
The guys will love it.
Yeah, our listeners are gonna absolutely love it.
Well, I hope they like it, and I wish you best of luck on your Grimerica or Grimerica.
Grimerica.
I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Yeah, your good old America show.
Okay, on.
Your God Bless America show.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Really, really appreciate it. And we're gonna link. We'll put this thing out there in the ether. We'll put this thing out there in the ether, and it'll go around the globe, and we'll have some feedback, and we'll keep you in touch, and we'll send you a copy of it.
Sounds good, Darren.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
God bless you. Yeah. God bless you, and you have best of luck.
You as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.